Hi, welcome. How's everyone doing? Hi, we're going live now. We're going to talk about the looming government shutdown. I'm going to wait for people to join. Welcome to Pull-Ups Pasta Politics Live. I'm going to talk about the government shutdown. I'm going to go over the basics, and then if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we'll go over them. Just checking the lighting here. It's a little dull in this room. It's raining here today where I am. Thanks for joining. We're going to go over the government shutdown. I'm going to give you all the basics, and then we're going to drill down on some questions that people have and some of the nuances of what's going on. And if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat and I will go over them. So tomorrow is the last day that the government will have funding, and then the government will shut down. So what happens? So Social Security checks will still go out. Lots of things will still happen. So it's not like everything comes to a screeching halt, but here's where we are. The Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. So if the government shuts down, it is their choice to do so. Okay. They can negotiate with Democrats, or they can put an end to the filibuster. And if they put an end to the filibuster, then they don't need the Democrats. They can go ahead and keep the government open. Now, I will remind everybody that the government, if it shuts down, Russell Vought from the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, has said that he will go ahead and permanently fire tons of federal workers and shut down agencies. And he's saying that he's going to do that if the Democrats refuse to vote to keep the government open. But it's interesting because it's always been his plan to do this. He actually wrote it in Project 2025. It's part of his chapter that he wrote. So they're just using this as an excuse. Okay. Now, in the Senate, they do need 60 votes to pass legislation to keep the government open. However, if they want to get rid of the filibuster, then they don't need the Democrats to do that. But there's a lot of, if they get rid of the filibuster, that means if the Democrats are in power, then they can get rid of the filibuster too. So I can see why they don't want to do that, but they can. If they think it's that important not to shut the government down, they can do that. Or they can negotiate with Republicans with Democrats. Now, the only thing Democrats are asking for right now, there's a lot of confusion about they're wanting all this new stuff and they want to add stuff. They don't. They know they're not in power. So the only thing the Democrats are asking for right now is to keep healthcare where it is for U.S. citizens and working families. Nothing to do with illegal immigrants. Nothing to do with people who are not eligible. Okay, so for instance, I'm on the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, okay? My premiums, I get a federal subsidy so that I can afford to pay the premiums. If the federal subsidies go away, which is what they wrote in the big beautiful bill, my premiums will go up 85%. It's about $24,000 a year just for the premiums. I still have a copay. I still have it's an $8,000 or $10,000 deductible every year. So my health insurance is not free. I pay for it. I've owned my small business for 15 years, but if these subsidies go away, then millions of people will not be able to afford to pay their premiums to stay on the Affordable Care Act. And a lot of people buy their insurance through the marketplace. So people who are like bartenders and hairdressers, people who own their own businesses, small business owners, that's where they get their health insurance from. Because before this, you had to work for a major corporation in order to get your health insurance. You had to work for some company that had a group plan that would give it to you. But this has allowed people to, go ahead and start their own businesses. And it's been great. The other thing they're asking for is to keep Medicaid where it is. And illegal immigrants are not on Medicaid. None of them. They're not eligible for it. And the only thing Democrats are asking for right now is to just keep it where it is. Keep the people who are legally eligible to be on it, who deserve to be on it, keep them on it. And then keep the cost sharing factor. Sometimes they have to pay like a nominal fee, like $1 or $4 to pick up a prescription. Well, the big beautiful bill has upped that cost sharing feature, and now people would have to pay like $25, $50 for a prescription. And for the people on Medicaid, that means that they can't afford those prescriptions. And so if you think about it this way, if you have a family who, like, say the father or the mother is on these medications and they can't take these medications, some of them they need them to live, some of them they need them just to be healthy enough to go to work to earn a living. So if they can't afford this medication, they have to decide, should I feed my kids or should I take my medication? And if I decide to feed my kids and I don't have my medication, then maybe I can't go to work, and then I'm not going to be able to bring money in to support my family. So you're really putting families in a tough position. And Democrats are not trying to negotiate Medicare for all. Like, I think we should have universal health care. That's my opinion in this country. We should have universal health care. But they're not asking for that. They're not asking for anything new. They're just saying, don't kick 20 million people off of health care. That's it. That's all they're asking. Don't kick 20 million people off of healthcare. Keep it exactly where it was before you pass this big, ridiculous bill just to give billionaires tax credits. So right now, if the Republicans want to keep the government open with Democrat votes, that's what the Democrats are asking for. If they want to do it without Democrat votes, then they can end the filibuster and they can pass it, and that's it. So all of this is in the control of the Republicans. Anybody have any questions? I'm looking to see if anybody has any questions. The whole point of this is that the Republicans are trying to blame a government shutdown on Democrats when they are in control of every single house, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the presidency. And they do need 7 votes from Democrats in the Senate if they don't want to get rid of the filibuster. But again, they're in control. They can get rid of the filibuster and they can pass this. So Republicans have to be clear with people. They actually do want to shut the government down because they want to blame Democrats. They definitely want to take health care away from 20 million people. And Russell Vought wants to go ahead and implement his plan that he wrote down in Project 2025 to permanently fire federal workers and to permanently get rid of these departments. That has always been their plan. So when he says we're going to fire all of these people in the government if the Democrats don't sign on to keep the government open, that's a lie. Okay, this is just the timing of it. I'm just looking to see. Vought is Satan. Yeah, I agree. He's really just a weird guy. Anybody have any questions about the fact that this shutdown will fall squarely on the Republicans? That they have the control? That Democrats have no control over whether this government stays open or not? They're asking to work with Republicans to keep healthcare where it is so that premiums don't go up 85% and so that people don't get kicked off their health insurance. But Democrats, they're just asking for that. Republicans don't actually have to negotiate with them if they don't want to. If they don't want to get rid of the filibuster, then they can negotiate with Democrats and keep people on their health care. But I'll remind you, there are some, hold on a second. There are some Republicans, like Josh Hawley, who said when he voted for the big beautiful bill that getting rid of Medicaid in his state and ending the ACA federal subsidies was going to be a disaster. But he said, I'll fix it later. And this is what he was talking about. He was talking about this time. This is his opportunity. So it's very unclear that even if the Democrats decided to get rid of the filibuster, that they would have all of the Republicans on board to pass the legislation without the Democrats. So that's another reason why they are trying to say that, yes, Josh Hawley is the worst. Somebody says he constantly tries to play both sides to stay in office. He knows that the big, beautiful, awful bill was terrible for his state, and ripping healthcare away is going to be a huge problem. I mean, people are going to lose their lives in his state, and people are going to lose their jobs, and it's going to be a disaster. But if the Republicans decided to say, let's just get rid of the filibuster, we'll just use, our Republican votes and we can pass this, they know that, number one, they might not get all the Republicans on board to vote for it. And two, if those Republicans do vote for it, then it completely screws them from ever getting reelected, and it'll screw over their state, and it'll be very, very obvious. I am in Missouri. He is another MAGA menace. Yeah, I can't stand Josh Hawley. He's just, I'll fix it later, maybe never. Good morning. Hi, Go Live Vegas. Good morning to you. I'm from his state. He doesn't care about anyone but himself and is trying to stay in power. Exactly. He knows that if his state loses Medicaid and the ACA cuts go through, he'll lose his job because it'll be very obvious. Did you see another person showed up at that same church? I'm not gonna talk about the church incident right now. Is California affected by the government shutdown? Everyone is affected by the government shutdown. It's going to be a question of what each state does to make sure that the government shutdown hurts their citizens the least. I'm going to lose healthcare in January if the ACA cuts go through because my premiums will go through the roof. It'll cost me more money in premiums than it would for my prescriptions and to go see the doctor. And there's three of us in my family, and there's prescriptions that we all need to live. And I have to go to the doctor every 6 to 12 weeks to have my blood work checked for certain conditions. It's just going to cost me a lot of money. It'll cost me a little less if I just kind of pay everything out of pocket. But if anything bad happens, we're kind of screwed. Any of us get diagnosed with cancer or break a hip, anything disastrous, it's going to be a problem. So I'm trying to find some workarounds. Democrats are now communists who hope to bring down the economic system of America is 30. What? I don't know what you're talking about. The Democrats are not in control of the budget right now. That's Republicans. If Dems agreed not to give Medicaid to illegals, the bill would pass. There's no illegal immigrants on Medicaid. Illegal immigrants do not qualify for Medicaid. This is where the confusion is. There are some states that if a person who is an illegal immigrant shows up at a hospital and they are having an active heart attack, or a woman is in labor, the doctors will not just stand there and watch that person die of a heart attack. Okay, they'll see that person have a heart attack. They'll go in, they'll save them. There are separate funds that they will then use to pay for the doctors that help that person. But once that person leaves the hospital, they don't get follow-up care. So if somebody came in, they had a heart attack, they resuscitate them, and they were an illegal immigrant, they go home, that's it. They're not on Medicaid. They don't get to go to a doctor. They don't get to fill their prescriptions. Illegal immigrants are not on Medicaid. They never were, and they never will be. And Democrats don't want any of that. Can you please refer to them as undocumented? Yes, I'm sorry. They are undocumented. They're not illegal. I'm sorry, I was just using that term because that's what people keep saying. Some states, your hypos are make-believe. I don't know what that means. Even the ER would be crazy expensive. So, so the other problem is that these rural hospitals will possibly close if these cuts go through. And so if you are living in an area where, say, it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour for you to get to a hospital, if your rural hospital closes down, it may be 2 hours, maybe 3 hours before you can get to a hospital. And that will be life-changing. People will lose their lives. If you have a heart attack or a stroke, you need to get to the hospital as soon as possible. Women who sometimes, I don't know how it is for you. When I went into labor, I gave birth within like 15 minutes of getting to the hospital. As soon as my labor was active, and if there was any problems, that's an issue. So women, who go into labor, you don't know exactly when you're going to go into labor. If you have to drive an hour or 2 hours to get to the hospital, you're having your baby in the back of the car with some people. If Dems would agree not to pass Medicaid, we already went over that. I was on the ACA until November when I qualified for Medicare. Can't imagine what you have to deal with. Yeah, so one of my family members is getting close to be able to qualify for Medicare, but that's a couple of years out. So we're crossing our fingers until we get there, but it's still going to be expensive for me. I have a college student, so I'm hoping that I might be able to buy insurance through the college, but that's very limited for when they can use it and how they can use it. And those rates might go up as well. So I'm not really sure what we're going to do. Shut it down. Can we please refer to them? Okay. Anybody else have any questions about this? So we'll go over it again. So the House, so this is something that's really important. I think a lot of people aren't talking about, is that the Democrats were trying to negotiate with Republicans back over the summer for this budget bill. And Republicans, specifically Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, sent all of the Republicans home, sent everybody home from the House of Representatives because he didn't want to have a vote to release the files. So he sent everybody home, so they weren't working on it. So now he's brought everybody back, and guess what's happening again? He shut it down again. He sent everybody home because the Democrats won a seat in Arizona, and now we have 218 votes so that we can vote to put the discharge petition. We have 218 signatures, so we can have the discharge petition on the floor of the House of Representatives, and then we can vote to release the files. But Mike Johnson doesn't want to seat this woman who won her seat in the special election in Arizona, so he sent everybody home. Now, here's the problem. Even if he seats her, and then they have the 218 signatures, and they put this on the floor, and say it passes the House of Representatives, it then has to go to the Senate, and it still needs 60 votes in the Senate. Every single Republican would have to be on record saying that they support releasing the files or not. Okay, and so say they do get the 60 votes, then that's going to go to the president's desk, and we all know that he won't sign it. So he'll veto the bill, and then it will have to go back to the House and to the Senate, and they'll need a 2/3 majority. So it's an uphill battle. You know, right now the Department of Justice and the president can just release the files. We don't need to go through any of this rigmarole. They can release the files. We can all see what's in them. But this will put everybody on record, and that's what they don't want to do. They don't want to start this process to get everybody on the record saying that they do or they don't want to release the files. They do or they don't want to stop these men, by the way, who are out there still doing this. Just because, you know, Epstein is not there providing you with people doesn't mean these people have stopped. Those men are still out there. So we have a big problem right now because we need to fund the government. They need to pass this, but the Republicans in the House are like, do we keep the government open or do we release the files? Do we vote to release the files? So they're playing this game, and the entire time they're just blaming it on Democrats when Democrats have no control over anything. The only reason that this discharge petition is even getting on the floor is because a Republican, Thomas Massie, decided to write this bill with a Democrat, Representative Ro Khanna. And we've gotten 3 other Republicans to sign on. And it's a little sketchy that it's only 3 women. There's only 3 women from the Republican side that signed on. It should be every woman on the Republican side, and there should be more men out there who care that we would take these men that are in the files and hold them accountable and stop them, but they don't seem to care. Does anybody have any questions specifically about why, if the government shuts down, it's completely the fault of the Republicans, that they're completely in control? I just want to make sure that everyone is clear. Republicans want to add more to the national debt. Yes, they have. Democrats want trillions of dollars. What do Democrats want trillions of dollars for? ACA recipients continue to have their benefits during a shutdown. Okay, so Eldo, McNair's, we continue to have our benefits. The Democrats are saying that the big, beautiful bill took away all of the federal subsidies. And in my state, 85% of the monthly premium is paid through the federal subsidy, up to 85%. So they're getting rid of those. So my insurance particularly will go up $24,000 a year just in premium, monthly premiums. I'm not talking about the copay that I have to pay for my prescriptions or my copay when I go see a doctor or a specialist or the big deductible that I have. So that's what the Democrats are saying. They're saying, let's keep the federal subsidies for the ACA paid out, because in the big, beautiful bill, they removed all those federal subsidies. So the government can shut down. We're going to lose the subsidies anyway. if they just shut it down. But because the Republicans are saying, no, we want to take the money that we were giving to people to buy their health care. U.S. citizens who are working, people who are on the ACA are working. Okay, they're on the ACA who are working and they pay for their health insurance. It's not free by any means. It's still pretty expensive, even with the subsidies. The Democrats are just saying, let's keep the federal subsidies going to the working people instead of giving that money to billionaires for their tax breaks and greedy corporations. Okay. Let's see. Anybody else? Let's see. Dan, Republicans have spent 82% of our national debt. Just got, yeah, I mean, y'all silly, he wants to shut it down. The president of the United States definitely doesn't care whether the government is functioning or not. The only thing he cares about is selling his Bitcoin and giving tax breaks to his billionaire friends. He doesn't get a Social Security check. He doesn't care who gets them. He doesn't care if the mail is running. I mean, all of those things you'll still get your Social Security checks, but national parks will shut down. He could care less. He wants to drill into those. For healthcare, for illegal. No, I'm just going to repeat this again. No one who is undocumented, who is in this country, receives Medicaid for free. They don't. The only thing, if somebody's undocumented, if they happen to show up at a hospital emergency room in the middle of a heart attack or a stroke, doctors and nurses will step in to save their life. That is it. They will not help them maintain their life after they leave that. They don't get to see a doctor. They don't get to pick up prescriptions. They don't get any care after that. It's basically the same as, if you're walking down the street and someone is suffocating, they have a bag over their head and you go over there and you take the bag off their head so they can continue to breathe. That's the extent of the health care that anyone in this country receives if they're undocumented. I'm worried about what will happen with air travel if the government shuts down. I'm flying in October. I'm flying in October too. So the FAA, the federal, the air traffic controllers, they continue to work. They just don't get paid. So they will get back pay once the government opens back up, but they don't get paid. So you should be extra nicer when you are going through the airport and dealing with the security and people like that, because they're working, but they're not getting their paychecks. But they will stay open. If my internet connection lags or stream is unstable, I don't know. Where's Trump's healthcare plan? Yeah, Trump. That's a good question. Didn't he have that giant book full of his healthcare plan, or he had the concepts of a plan? We haven't seen anything. And I'll remind you, Democrats are not even asking to change anything. They're just saying, just keep the crappy plan that we have now. Just keep it in place so people don't lose their lives and they don't lose their health insurance. The plans that we have now are terrible, but it's not like Republicans are replacing it with anything or making anything better. They're just getting rid of it. They're getting rid of the subsidies, so people will have to get off the ACA. They're also, kicking millions of people off of Medicaid. So they're not offering a better solution. They're just saying, you just don't have any health care. Just get rid of it. It's just better. So people you can't actually complain about your health care plan if you don't have one. So maybe that's their... Billy, they want 1.3 children for illegals. Again, Billy, 75. People who are here undocumented do not get free health care in this country. Get a job. Get a job from working. I own a small business. I have for 15 years. I own a product design firm, and my family buys our health insurance through my business off the Affordable Care Act, through the ACA on the marketplace. So I have a job. I've been working very hard for the last 15 years, and I'd like to keep my business open. My daughter won't be able to afford insurance. This is the other thing that has come up about the health insurance. So these federal subsidies for the ACA, we have a lot of people who have, recently graduated college, and they're over 26. They're off of their parents' healthcare plans, but they haven't found a job yet that will give them health insurance. So they're buying their health insurance off the ACA. And it's not that expensive for them because they're young and they're healthy and they're not making any money. But now they won't be able to afford that. So when all of those healthy young people stop buying into the system, that makes healthcare premiums go up for everybody. So even people who have private healthcare insurance, their premiums are going up. Even people who get their insurance through their corporation, through their company that they're working for, their premiums are going up and their copays are going up and their deductibles are going up. Because the system that we have set up here in this country is that insurance companies are billion-dollar for-profit companies, and they're not going to make less money. They're going to give out less health care, and they're going to charge people who are on it more money. So I think people need to understand that that's a system, that's another conversation for when Democrats are back in power. We need to get rid of a system where health insurance companies are for-profit, when they make billions and billions of dollars to deny people health care coverage. If you just stopped making those companies for profit, you just put all of that money back into the healthcare system, and you still had things in place to make sure that people weren't billing for procedures they weren't getting done and things like that, the healthcare system would work a lot better if, CEOs of insurance companies weren't buying yachts and private jets and islands. Bernie Sanders has the answers for affordable healthcare. He certainly does. I love Bernie Sanders. I wish somebody would listen to him. Okay, what time is it? It's 3:26. Okay, a few more minutes. I'm going to ask answer a couple of more questions, and then I'm going to hop off, and I'll try to come out. Let's see. Yes, we really need national health care. I agree. FDT. Yes, Joseph, FDT. Totally agree. So just to recap, we're looming towards a government shutdown. Tomorrow's the last day. Republicans control the House and the Senate and the presidency. They can work with Democrats to get 60 votes in the Senate to pass this legislation, so to keep the government open, or they can just put an end to the filibuster and they can pass it on their own. So they're in control. But we have the problem in the House where they don't want to reopen the House because they don't want to seat this woman who just won her seat in Arizona, because then it gives us 218 signatures to bring the discharge petition to the floor of the House, so that they would have to vote to release the Epstein files, and they'd all have to go on record. And then it would go to the Senate, and then all the senators would have to go on record. And then even if they passed it there, it would go to the president's desk, and then the president would have to veto the bill, because we all know he would veto the bill to release the files. There's no way he's going to sign it. And then the House and the Senate would have to override the veto with a 2/3 majority. So they don't want to do that. So the government shutting down has a lot more to do with what the Republicans don't want to come out and what they don't want to have on record. And then again, Russell Vought wants to fire permanently federal workers and dismantle all of those agencies. And so they're just using this government shutdown as an excuse to fire all of those people and to keep from going on record to release the files. That's it. That's the goal. Yes, we really need national health care. And I just want people to remember, if the government shuts down, we still don't have our health care. 20 million people lose their health care. If the government stays open, 20 million people lose their health care if Republicans don't take votes from the Democrats, don't work with the Democrats. So from my point of view, from my perspective, I lose unless they decide to work with the Democrats. So I don't care if they shut the government down. Shut it down. This government is inflicting so much pain and so much harm. Why should we fund it? Why should we allow them to keep giving billions of dollars to their, billionaire people? I don't want to do that. Okay, thank you all so much. I'm still trying to learn how to do all of this live stuff. I really appreciate all of the gifts and the messages, and I really appreciate the questions. I like to answer the questions. Sometimes when I'm on here, I don't know what people want to know and what they don't. So please, next time I go live, have your questions ready. And I'm willing to be sacrificed for the greater good federal worker. Thank you. Thank you, Latris Murray. I'm sorry that you're a federal worker and that you would be subjected to being fired permanently. But unfortunately, I think that they want to do that anyway. And so I know that they're trying to rehire some federal workers that DOJ actually fired because they realized that was a bad idea and they actually need those people back. So we'll see what they actually end up doing. But This government is a shit show. So shut it down. USA is also on the brink of economic collapse. The AI bubble is the only thing keeping it together. Yeah, I'm not an economist, but things don't look good. I have to travel overseas next month for a business trip, and the dollar's worth like nothing compared to the euro, the Canadian dollar. This is like the worst that it's been in a really long time when I travel. Usually works out a little bit better. The last time I went over to Europe, the dollar was worth more than the euro, and that was really nice, especially for shopping and stuff, but I'll be working most of the time. Why do we need 100 cost increase in prescriptions? I don't know, Love Flowers, are you asking why he's going to put 100% tariff on prescription drugs? So he wants some of the American companies that produce their drugs outside of the US, Trump wants them to manufacture their drugs here in the US. And he says if they haven't broken ground or they don't have plans yet to start to manufacture their drugs here in the US, then he's going to start to charge 100% tariff. Now, there are other things that he could do to incentivize these companies to start manufacturing their drugs here in the US, but he's chosen the path that punishes the people who need the drugs. Okay, there's a way to punish the companies or to incentivize the companies, but the way he's done it is he's put a tariff on, and that tariff will affect the price of drugs, and it will cause people not to be able to afford the drugs that they need. So I don't know all of the options, but there are other options that he could do. I mean, he could talk to these companies and say, we're going to charge you this amount of money and you can't pass the cost on to the consumer. I mean, there are things that he could do, but he's choosing to just punish the US people because you have to understand, him and his family, they have never lived on a budget. They have no idea what it's like to get to the end of the week and have $50 in your bank account and have to decide, what do I do with this $50? Do I put it in savings? Do I buy my prescription drugs? Do I buy the school supplies my kid has? Oh, guess what? I just got a flat tire. Now I need, $300, and now I'm, negative in my balance. They have no idea when they say that, oh, well, it's just some short-term, pain for the American people and it'll be really great in the long term. The short-term pain for people is their lives, is their health, is food, going hungry. They have no perspective of what it is like to live with a budget. Through my years, I've had times where, I've had more money than less. And so I can always go back sometimes when I have to, I can always go back to the times when I was a college student or was first out of college and I just could barely scrape by. I know how to do those things when I need to do them. They don't. They have no idea. So, okay, it's 3:33. I'm going to jump off. Thank you so much for joining. If you enjoyed this, send me a message, make a comment, and I'll go live again. I'm sure I'll be live again this week because things are getting crazy and we'll see what happens with the shutdown. But I hope I've been able to answer your questions and it's been very nice to talk to you all. Okay, bye guys.